So I'm going to do something on this video that I've been sitting on for a while. I'm going to tell you what my retirement actually costs me. Real categories, real ranges, the wins and the mistakes both. And more importantly, what each dollar actually buys in terms of how this life feels day to day. Now, I want to be upfront about something before we get into the numbers. I'm going to give you real categories and honest ranges. A man who puts his exact bank statements on YouTube has bigger problems than a retirement budget. But within that, I'm going to be more honest than most retirement content ever gets. Because here's why most retirement budget videos fail the viewer. They're built around theoretical numbers. The average retiree spends this, the median household spends that. And the viewer leaves with data, but no actual picture of what a real retirement looks and feels like from the inside. So here's the picture. I retired in June of 2019 at 63. I've been doing this for almost 7 years now. I'm 67. I did not retire with $1 million. I've said that on this channel before, and I'll keep saying it because I think it matters. Modest savings, paid off house, a plan. And in the years since, here's what I've learned about money and retirement that no spreadsheet told me in advance. The number you need to retire on is not fixed. It moves based on decisions you make. Some of those decisions cost you more than you expected. Some of them save you more than you planned. And a few of them, the ones you make without knowing what you're doing, cost you in ways you only understand later. I've made all three kinds. Let me walk you through what that actually looks like. And look, if nobody's told you about this channel yet, this is exactly what we do here every week. Real retirement talk from guys who are living it. Come be part of it. Hit subscribe and the ring notification bell right away. So let's start with the biggest number first, because it's the one that shapes everything else. Housing. I've talked about this in other videos on this channel. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows housing carries about 36% of the average retiree's monthly budget. For most men, it's the largest single cost category by a significant distance. For me, that number is significantly lower than the average. Because my mortgage is paid off. Now, I didn't walk into retirement with it paid off. I paid off the remaining balance, about $110,000 bought in 2021, 2 years in. Pulled it from my IRA in one lump sum. Felt clean, felt right, celebrated it quietly, and then paid for it 2 years later when May hit my Medicare bill. I've made a whole video about that mistake, and I'll come back to it later in this one. But the mortgage itself, gone. And what that leaves in its place is a housing cost that looks almost nothing like the national average. My monthly housing cost today, property taxes, homeowners insurance, utilities, maintenance, runs somewhere between $900 and $1,100 depending on the month. Winter pushes the heating bill up. Summer cools it back down. A repair here and there. Last year it was a water heater. A year before that, a section of fence gets absorbed because there's no mortgage underneath those costs, stretching the budget thin. If I were still carrying that mortgage payment, my monthly housing cost would be closer to $2,200. The difference between these two numbers, roughly $1,100 a month, is the most consequential financial decision I've made in retirement. More consequential than any investment return. More consequential than anything else on this list. Pay off the house if you can. The math is undeniable. The second biggest category is healthcare, and this one has some nuance worth explaining. I enrolled in Medicare at 65 in 2021. I've delayed Social Security, so my Medicare Part B premium comes as a direct bill rather than a deduction from a Social Security deposit. I pay it monthly. In 2026, Right. The standard Part B premium is $185 a month. I'm at the standard rate now, the IRMAA. Surcharge from 2023 is behind me. On top of Part B, I carry a Medigap supplement. Part G, Mike, which covers most of the Gap's original Medicare leaves, including the Part B deductible and coinsurance. My Medigap premium runs about $140 a month at my age. Add Part D for prescription coverage, around $35 a month, and my total base Medicare coverage costs me roughly $360 a month. Then there are the out-of-pocket costs that don't fall neatly into premiums. Dental, which Medicare doesn't cover. Vision, also not covered. The occasional specialist visit with a copay. A prescription that's partially covered but not fully. Across a year, my total healthcare spending runs somewhere between $6,000 and $7,500. That's $500 to $625 a month on average. Now, I've made decisions here that I believe were right. I chose original Medicare with a Medigap supplement over a Medicare Advantage plan. The Advantage plan premiums are lower, significantly lower in some cases, but I wanted the ability to see any doctor who accepts Medicare anywhere in the country. No network restrictions, no prior authorizations. That flexibility has real value to me, and I was willing to pay for it. The one thing I've been deliberate about on the prescription side is asking my doctor every year whether anything I'm on has a generic equivalent. Same active ingredient, meaningfully lower cost, small discipline, consistent savings across a year. Food is the third category, and this is the one where I made the most mistakes in the first year. When I retired, my wife and I started eating out more, a lot more. It felt earned. And it was to a degree. But here's what I didn't account for. When you're working, eating out is partly about convenience. You're tired, there's no time. The restaurant solves a problem. When you're retired, eating out becomes something else. It becomes entertainment. It becomes the social activity. It becomes the default answer to what should we do tonight? And it starts adding up in a way that catches you off guard. In our first year of retirement, our food spending, groceries plus dining, was running close to $1,100 a month. By year 3, we'd brought it down to around $750. Through awareness, not deprivation, the main change was groceries. I started buying store brands more consistently. Started shopping 3 or 4 days at a time instead of a full week, which cut the amount of food we threw out dramatically. RK, and shifted dining out from a default to a deliberate choice. We pick where we want to go, we enjoy it, and we don't go just because we haven't decided what else to do. Currently, our food budget runs around $700 to $800 a month. That includes 2 or 3 restaurant meals a week, real ones, good ones, and groceries that are genuinely good quality. This is a conscious number. There's a difference between that and a deprivation number. And this is the former. Transportation is the fourth category. And here's something that might surprise you. My wife and I have one car. We talked about this seriously when I retired. We'd been a 2-car household for 25 years because we both had jobs that required it. The moment I stopped commuting, the math changed. We kept our car, a 2019 Honda CR-V with about 45,000 miles on it at the time, and sold mine. The proceeds went into savings, and the insurance, registration, and maintenance costs of running one vehicle instead of 2 dropped our monthly transportation costs significantly. Between insurance, fuel, and maintenance on a single vehicle, we're running about $280 to $320 a month. There are months where we rent a car for a longer trip. That adds to the number. But averaged across a year, transportation is one of the smallest categories in our budget, which genuinely surprised me The mental barrier to going from two cars to one is real. The actual practical barrier, yes, once we did it, was much smaller than either of us anticipated. Entertainment and travel sit together in my budget because I think about them together. And this is where the part time income changes everything. I teach operations management at the community college twice a week. I consult 1 day a week at a small manufacturing company nearby. I make these videos and I write. What those three streams bring in combined runs between $4,500 and $5,500 a month, depending on the semester and the consulting workload. And here's the decision I made early in retirement that I think has served me better than almost anything else. That income doesn't go into general spending, it goes to three places. A portion goes into savings, a portion covers discretionary spending, the things that make retirement feel like retirement rather than a long period of not working, and a portion goes to what I call the travel fund. The travel fund is simple, a dedicated account. Money flows in from the part time income. When my wife and I want to take a trip, we pull from there. No deliberation about whether we can afford it. No pulling from savings. No calculating whether this month's budget can absorb it. It's already there. Last year, we took 2 trips. One long weekend to see family 3 states away. One 10-day trip we'd been planning for 2 years. Both came entirely from the travel fund. Neither touched savings, and on entertainment more broadly, we spend maybe $200 to $300 a month on things that don't fit other categories. Books, which is more than I'd publicly admit. The occasional round of golf. The fishing group every other Saturday. A concert here and there. This number is low because the retirement we've built genuinely doesn't require a lot of paid entertainment to feel full. Most of what makes my days good doesn't cost much. The morning at the fishing spot, the Tuesday and Wednesday mornings at the college, the Thursday at the manufacturing plant working through a real problem. The evenings writing. I expected retirement to require more expensive stimulation than it does. It doesn't. At least this version of it. Now let me put the full picture together. Monthly costs in broad strokes. Housing, $900 to $1,100. Healthcare, $500 to $625. Food, $700 to $800. Transportation, $280 to $320. Entertainment and incidentals, $300 to $400. Travel, handled through the travel fund, so it sits outside the monthly budget entirely. Total monthly spending, roughly $2,700 to $3,250 depending on the month. That's what it costs me to live the way I'm living. And I know what some of you are doing right now. You're calculating what that requires in savings. The 4% rule, the rough guideline that says you can withdraw 4% of your savings annually without depleting your principal over 30 years, puts the savings requirement for $36,000 a year at $900,000. But here's what that number misses completely. I'm drawing very little from savings every month because the part-time income covers most of that monthly cost. My savings sits largely untouched, growing quietly, available when I need it. And here's the math I want you to hold on to. The amount your savings actually needs to produce each month is the gap between your monthly expenses and your reliable monthly income. Smaller gap. Smaller savings requirement, which means every dollar of part-time income you generate in retirement is worth far more than a dollar. Worse, it's worth $25 in required savings, using the 4% rule as the benchmark. A man generating $2,000 a month in part-time consulting income has effectively added $600,000 to his retirement security without saving it. without investing it, just by having a skill and using it 2 days a week. I didn't fully understand that math before I retired. I understand it clearly now. Okay, the mistakes. Because this script isn't useful if I only show you what went right. So here's how that part of the story actually sounds. The IRMAA thing, I've already touched on it. One lump sum IRA withdrawal to pay off the mortgage should have been spread over 3 years. Cost me close to $4,000 in Medicare surcharges 2 years later. Learned it the wrong way. That's why there's a whole video about it on this channel. Now, year one spending. I've mentioned on this channel the story of Raymond, a man I know who spent $112,000 in his first year of retirement and scared himself badly by year 3. I didn't go that far, but I spent more than I should have. Here's what happened. There was a kitchen renovation we'd been putting off for years. Some travel we front-loaded because we'd been telling ourselves we'd do it once we retired. Some things we bought because the retirement feeling made everything feel permitted. And you know how that goes. You've waited long enough, you've earned it. And the breaks that used to engage automatically, the paycheck rhythm, the sense that next month needed to be covered, those breaks are gone. So you spend. By year 2, I'd settled into a much clearer picture of what we actually needed. And the difference between year 1 spending and year 2 spending was significant. Year 1, we were figuring out what retirement costs. Year 2, Maho, we actually knew. So the advice I'd give any man walking out of the building for the last time is this. Budget tighter in year 1 than you think you need to. Give yourself a full year to learn what your retirement actually costs before you let the spending breathe. The margin that discipline creates in years 2, 3, and 4 is worth more than whatever you feel you're holding back on in year 1. And the third thing, I almost bought a vacation home. There's a place I love, a few hours from here. And for a solid stretch of time in years 2 and 3 of retirement, buying something there felt almost inevitable. We'd go, we'd love it. Yeah, we'd stand on someone else's porch and think, this could be ours. I ran the numbers eventually. What it would actually cost to own a home I'd use 4 months a year, property taxes, insurance, utilities, 12 months of ownership expenses for 4 months of actual use. The math was clear once I looked at it honestly. What stopped me from looking at it honestly, for longer than I'd like to admit, was Frank, who asked, without judgment, whether I'd modeled the full annual cost of ownership against what it would cost to simply rent somewhere nice for 4 months a year. I hadn't. I did, and I didn't buy one of the better decisions I've made in retirement. And it came from someone asking the right question at the right time, not from any particular wisdom of my own. So what does all of this add up to? Here's my honest answer to the title of this video. My retirement costs between $2,700 and $3,250 a month to run. It includes good food, a reliable car, real healthcare coverage, real travel, and enough breathing room that no individual expense feels like a threat. It includes work, the teaching, the consulting, the writing. The channel, I do those things because I chose to. Because the mentor I talked about in another video on this channel was right. The need to be needed doesn't retire when you do. And because that work funds the life without touching the savings, in a way that feels genuinely sustainable. If I had to give you a number, a single monthly income figure that I think represents a comfortable, a genuinely fulfilling retirement for a man in America who owns his home and is reasonably healthy, I'd say somewhere between $4,000 and $5,500 a month. Below $4,000 with a mortgage is tight. Below $4,000 without a mortgage is manageable with discipline. At $4,000 to $5,500, a man can live well, travel occasionally, give to the people he cares about, go to sleep without doing financial calculus every morning when he wakes up. Above $5,500, the options expand meaningfully. The trips get longer, the giving gets easier. The margin for error widens. But here's what I've learned that matters more than any of those numbers. The men I know who are genuinely content in retirement are almost never the ones with the largest accounts. They're the ones who know what they have, know what they need, and built a life that fits the space between those two things. That's a practice. And it requires looking honestly at your own life, what it actually costs, what it actually takes, and what actually makes it feel worth living, rather than measuring yourself against what someone on the internet says it should look like. I'm telling you what mine looks like. I'm sharing it because real is more useful than theoretical. And because the only reason this channel exists is that conversation, and the honest one, was missing from most of what I could find when I was trying to figure this out myself. If today gave you something to work with, share this with someone who's trying to figure out the same questions. Because a lot of men are doing the math in the dark, with nothing but averages and projections to go on. A real number from a real person living a real retirement, that's worth something. And if you're not already part of this community, come join us. Because this is exactly what we do here. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. See you in the next one.